Hello guys, this is Mountain Range Productions here today with a top 10 video. I've been meaning to do more of these for quite a while now, but because of the circumstances that I've had trying to make them, either it be insomnia or whatever trivial reason out there is, I haven't been doing as much of these as I want to, but I'm going to try to do more of them. And yeah, I have another top 10 planned eventually that has something to do with this, but again, I gotta finish a certain show, if you know what I'm talking about, and watch some others to see if they can make the list. But yeah, expect some more top 10 content to come out in the future. But anyways, now that we're done with this mini intro, let's get into some of the bigger shit. Or, well, the real intro. You know something I really like? Action shows. Yeah, I know, kind of surprising, but yeah, I really get a kick out of this genre. Now, while it is definitely the genre is definitely filled with a bunch of shows that are either super generic, the characters are uninteresting, and even the action is very bland. The good shows in the genre far outweigh the bad, if you ask me, and the best shows in the genre tend to have great characters, great storytelling, great action scenes, a lot of character development, great characters overall, and I just really liked this genre. And you know what else I liked that is also an action show? Power Rangers. Yeah, I know, it's kind of surprising considering you guys they think that I could probably consider Power Rangers one of those preschool shows that basically, if you're an adult, there really isn't any value to it. But nah, Power Rangers ain't like that. I actually really love this franchise. Now, while I'm not the biggest fan of some of the earlier seasons, I guess you'd say, in the franchise, a lot of the seasons from the late 90s to the 2000s, and even some of the seasons from the 2010s, this franchise is filled with a lot of fun. It does have, now I can definitely see some people finding some of the shows cheesy, but I think that kind of adds a bit to the charm of Power Rangers. And even under some of the cheesiness and some of the more kid-centered stuff, there's actually a lot of really good storytelling in this franchise, and the characters are definitely great. And while it's not necessarily an animated show where a lot of my favorite action shows come from, I'd say it's almost as good as some of my absolute favorites from the genre. And today, we are going to be counting down my top 10 favorite Power Rangers seasons. Now, there aren't really any rules to this list. I am going to be trying to focus on the seasons that have, well, really just one does. I mean, the way that Power Rangers does seasons, it basically feels like each season is its own show entirely in a way, but some spoiler alerts to some people, and I know this is going to be a bit you'll probably be a bit bummed out by this, but I'm not going to be putting Mighty Morphin on this list. Now, not because I hate Mighty Morphin, but this is the only show in the franchise, except for some of the Nickelodeon seasons, that actually has multiple seasons in them. I only really liked the first one, and even then, it is definitely not aged that well. But I do like Mighty Morphin, but I want to give attention to some of the other better and really good seasons of the show. But anyways, I think this intro has gone on for long enough. Let's get on to the list itself. Starting with number 10, Lightspeed Rescue. AKA the first Power Rangers season to come out in the 2000s, where I think a lot of really good seasons of Power Rangers happened in this decade. And, yeah, while Lightspeed Rescue isn't my favorite season from this decade, I thought there was a lot of stuff that Lightspeed Rescue did that was really good. One of the things I really liked about this season was its setup of Rangers. Mainly Carter, the Red Ranger. I think pretty much everyone can agree that Carter is really one of the best fucking Red Rangers we've ever had, and a lot of the stuff of, well, Carter doing Carter stuff is really entertaining, and I think is done really well in terms of storytelling and just overall the atmosphere of it. And the rest of the Rangers were mostly pretty good as well, but one of the things I really liked about this season actually was the fact that the Rangers weren't super unknown. Like, that didn't have to actually keep their identities secret. Like, the people knew who they were, and I thought that was actually a pretty cool concept. And yeah, a lot of the season, again, the season is really built on heroism more than a lot of other seasons of the show, and I thought the season again was done pretty well. The characters were great for the most part. The story also, like, this is probably one of the most serious, I guess you'd say, Power Rangers seasons. Well, okay, maybe not the most serious. You'll see some other more serious ones higher on the list, but again, it was actually fairly dark. And I also really liked the Titanium Ranger. I thought he was pretty cool. He was one of the Rangers, I guess you'd say, that start out as evil, but do slowly turn good over time. And I do usually like it when they do that with the show, although the one thing that is keeping Lightspeed Rescue from being higher on the list is I thought a lot of the villains were, I'm just gonna be honest, they were pretty freaking weak. Now, I don't mean weak as in terms of physical strength or ability. I mean just character-wise, there were a lot of villains in this show, in this season, that really did not hit very well. And there was also some really bad acting on the side of the villains, so I mean, there's that. But for the most part, Lightspeed Rescue is a very entertaining season, and it is a great season to start off the 2000s with. Anyways, now it is time to move on to the next spot. Number 9, Zeo. Now, I'm gonna say something that might trigger some big Power Rangers fans, I guess you'd say, but I'm not the hugest fan of the Zordon era. Now, not to say there was nothing good about this era. I mean, there were, like, towards the end of it, there were some really good seasons and some really good stuff in there, but I feel like in the earlier parts, before a certain season, which you'll see later on this list, I feel like a lot of the seasons in this era really did not have a good grasp on how to tell good stories, and while the characters were usually mostly pretty solid, and they were not likable, and had some good development, they also had, I guess you'd say, life lessons that really didn't really stick all that well, and were mostly pretty meaningless, and didn't really hold that much of a punch. Although one of the seasons that I do like from the earlier parts of this era is Zeo. Now, this may be a bit of an unpopular opinion, but just considering most people have the notion that Mighty Morphin is better than Zeo, and that Zeo was pretty weak overall, or maybe not weak, but really not that good. But personally, I actually really liked what Zeo did. Now, it's not as cheesy, I guess you'd say, as, well, Mighty Morphin, and they actually did take out a lot of the kind of corniness and cheesiness that the Mighty Morphin era did, and ultimately tried to go for a bit more of a darker tone, or okay, maybe not really that dark, but a more kind of serious tone. And I think this is truly when Power Rangers started to get on the grasp on how to tell actual stories. And there were a lot of stuff in this show that, again, I thought was pretty solid. I mean, again, the Ranger team was mostly pretty solid. The villains, while not the best villains in the franchise or anything, I did like the Machine Empire and their kind of connections to kind of like Shakespeare. I thought that was kind of a little bit interesting, and we got some interesting villains like Prince Gaston, for example, and the Gold Ranger is by far one of the best freaking extra Rangers that we've ever had, and I thought the return of Jason was pretty solid. And again, I do like a lot of the stuff that Zeo did, and there's something about it that I did find pretty charming, although, again, I think the biggest issue comes with Zeo is, again, it does kind of have a similar problem to Mighty Morphin, at least some of the, with Mighty Morphin, mainly in terms of, again, the kind of episodes that center around, quote, life lessons that I don't really feel, again, hold together that well. But, again, in Zeo, I don't think they're as weak as the ones in Mighty Morphin, and while I did say that this is where they started to get more of the hang of telling actual stories, again, it's not the best storytelling in the series, definitely not by a long shot, but again, I think Zeo is actually kind of a fairly underrated season, and I would recommend giving this one a shot. And also, the theme song is absolutely kick-ass. One of my favorite theme songs is probably the best kind of Go-Go Power Rangers remix that we've had in the franchise. Number 8, Ninja Storm. In my opinion, I would describe this as the first real Disney season of the show. I know technically Wild Force was the first Disney season, but this is the first one that they transitioned over, the first one where they transitioned over to New Zealand, and it does have a much different vibe compared to the kind of earlier 2000 season. So yeah, I consider this the true first Disney season. But Anyways, this is kind of the era of Power Rangers where they do try to go for a bit more of a, I guess you could say, comedic side of things, or, well, not overly reliant on comedy. The seasons in the Disney era do use more self-referential humor, and while not completely shoving aside the dark side of the franchise, there are more jokes, I guess you'd say, that are cracked in this show, and yeah, I actually think that Ninja Storm was a pretty solid first season in the Disney era. Now, Ninja Storm is not perfect. Like, let's just get that out of the way. It's not a perfect season. I think the Ranger team that we have in this show is pretty good for the most part, although I don't really think there are really any that really break through the mold as great, except for maybe Cam, but I don't really think it needed to do that, because, again, like, all the Rangers, at least most of them anyway, or a couple of them, while they don't have super huge character development, they do have small moments of it, and some kind of self-centered, I guess you'd say, episodes that do give them some nice, again, development, and I mean, when it comes to the humor, I actually really liked the humor in Ninja Storm, and it doesn't overly rely on self-awareness, and again, it's not just self-awareness for the sake of it. Like, yeah, they do poke fun at some tropes of the franchise, like in the first episode where they don't even know how to use the morphers, and Cam himself has to actually tell them how to do it. I thought that was kind of funny. It was kind of poking fun at the fact that some Rangers in the previous seasons kind of just know how to morph automatically without even being told, and I guess, again, a simpler way of putting it is kind of like Teen Titans Go, but the humor is actually funny in a way. And even though it's not super heavy on storytelling, there were again some pretty solid stories in the episodes here. Although, again, I don't think it's super consistent when it comes to the good episodes. I mean, some of them are definitely pretty forgettable and really inconsequential, I guess you can say, but they did manage to poke out some really good episodes in this season. And again, while the Ranger team isn't top tier in the franchise, it was mostly pretty fun, and that's, I think, a good way of putting Ninja Storm. It wasn't really trying to be a super serious season, and I think it used that to its advantage. And yeah, I do really like Ninja Storm, and I do wish I did watch it more as a kid. And also, I think when it comes to the villain side of things, they are very goofy, but I think there were some really good villains again here. Like, Lothor is probably one of my favorites. I just love how he's freaking written, and I think there was a villain that was introduced towards the later half that I thought was great, but I kind of forget his name. But again, just Ninja Storm is more so the chill season, and it's pretty solid. Anyways, let's move on to the next season. Number 7, SPD. Something I gotta give credit to SPD for doing is, in my opinion, probably having the absolute best fucking theme song of any Power Rangers show. Like, seriously, the fucking theme song to SPD is a fucking bop. But the season doesn't just get the number 7 spot just for the theme song alone. There was, again, a lot of stuff that the season did that was pretty great, and I thought the first half of SPD was near top 5 material. Like, if the whole show stayed as good as the first half, it would be in the top 5. But, yeah, the things I really like about this season are mostly the world that it centers around. It's more of a futuristic side of things, kind of like Time Force. Well, maybe not completely in that boat, but it's kind of just how, I guess you'd say, how the world would be if racism and speciesism wasn't so worldly accepted. But, yeah, I really liked the futuristic setting the show centers around. I think the abilities that the Rangers have, mainly with their morphers, I think are pretty cool. Like, basically, whenever they go stop a villain, they turn them into basically collectible trading cards, which I thought that was kind of cool. But, again, it's not just the little shit that gets this season a good spot. It is the Ranger team itself. And, yeah, I think this Ranger team probably has some of the most well-developed characters in the franchise. Jet is probably one of my personal favorite Red Rangers. I thought he was a really good character. Sky kind of starts out as a douchebag, but I think it's good that they actually kind of start him out that way and they don't reward him for being a douchebag. And as the show goes on, he develops much better and all turns into an overall, but not only better person, but also just a better character in general. And I thought he was a really good Blue Ranger. And the episode Reflection is a really good episode of this season, probably one of the best Power Rangers episodes. And we have Bridge, who I did really like for the most part as well. Z is also really greatly developed, although the team isn't perfect. I thought that, I think her name was Sydney. She was a pretty weak Ranger. Again, not necessarily in terms of ability, but character-wise, she barely develops at all. The Omega Ranger, he kind of just sucks. Kruger, I think, is by far one of the best Ranger mentors, might even be the greatest, in my opinion. And yeah, just the characters overall were great. And again, I thought the first half had a lot of really good episodes, and while the second half isn't perfect, I thought the episodes were. There were a couple in the second half that were great as well. I mean, again, I already referenced Reflection, that was great. Endings, I thought was good. I thought the second team up they did with the Dino Thunder team was pretty good, or at least I thought it was pretty good. But, yeah, SPD is just overall a great season, and yeah, I don't know what else to say here other than it's just good season. But, anyways, let's move on to the next spot. Number 6, Jungle Fury. Yeah, I'll bet you some people probably thought that Disney Era was going to go to shit after the previous season, Operation Overdrive, which, okay, I'm going to be honest, I actually do like Operation Overdrive, but even I can admit that the season was pretty bad, but that season was anything but bad. I really fucking like Jungle Fury, and it's definitely one of my favorite seasons. Well, I mean, obviously it is, because it's at number 6 spot, but this is where the seasons, I think, start getting very good, and I would really recommend all 6 of these seasons coming up. But, yeah, let's just talk about Jungle Fury. One of the things that I think the season does really well, and something that I don't really think many other Power Rangers series seasons really do, and that is just about every single character in this show actually receives character development. And I don't just mean like kind of a 1 or 2 off episode that just slightly tells you more about the character. I mean, like, pretty much every character actually is significantly different from how in the later part of the show in the end compared to how they were in the beginning. Like, the main Ranger team, again, is really freaking good. I think Casey is a great Red Ranger. He definitely has some of the best development in this show. I forget the names of the blue and the yellow ones, but they receive some pretty good development again. Jared is probably one of my favorite Power Rangers villains. He's by far one of the most human, and again, he's also, again, alongside Casey, the character that receives the most development in the show. RJ, he's by far one of the most entertaining Ranger mentors in the franchise. I fucking love RJ. Most of the other villains and characters are great as well. I think that the girl's name is Fran. I think she's a pretty great side character. And yeah, I really like Jungle Fury for the most part. Not only does it just have an actual likable cast of characters compared to the previous one, but again, storytelling-wise, I thought the episodes were great. Again, just I think it does the character development well. Just pretty much everything in Jungle Fury, I think, is done pretty solidly. And, oh yeah, again, the theme song fucking slaps. Numero 50, Lost Galaxy. Now, this season did have a bit of a tough shoe to fill compared to what the previous season was, but I think Lost Galaxy might just be one of the most underappreciated seasons of the whole show. It did a lot of things really well that I don't see many people actually cover, and yeah, I'm going to talk about a couple of those things. Firstly, I thought the Ranger team, again, I know I've said this multiple times before, but the Ranger team is definitely one of the best that we've had in a while. Leo, I think that's the name of the Red Ranger, he develops pretty solidly as the show goes on, and again, the rest of the team, again, was pretty solid as well, but, I would like to specifically mention one thing about the team and just the show in general. This is the first season where a Ranger actually dies in the series. Yeah, I know. It's kind of funny how people describe Power Rangers as just, oh, it's just another kid show, bro. It's one of the fucking preschool shit. But here we have the first season of the fucking franchise where a character actually dies. And, yeah, yeah, it was pretty freaking sad. And the ranger that replaced the Pink Ranger, that was the one who died. Yeah, the villain in this one was actually the one of the main villains of the last season, and yeah, I thought I think her name was Kendricks, or I forget what exact name of the ranger that replaced her was, but yeah, she also had some of the best development in the show. The Sets Ranger, I think it was the Magnet Offender. He was great. I really liked him, and the villains were among again some of the best ones in the franchise. Tritina especially, I do really like Katrina, and again, I think she has pretty solid development as well. Just how proceedingly freaking crazy and detached from reality she gets, but yeah, and when it comes to storytelling, again, I just really liked the episodes in this series. The first episode is actually one of the best first episodes of the franchise. This was actually the first season that had the Ranger team up episode, and yeah, To the 10th Power and The Power of the Paint were some of the best freaking uh Ranger team up episodes of the franchise, and yeah, this is also the season where they actually changed Ranger teams, and I thought that was pretty cool. And yeah, I just really liked Lost Galaxy. And yeah, to mention the theme song again, I'm not gonna do this with everyone, but the theme song's pretty solid. Not the best one, but again, it's good. But anyways, now time to move on to my absolute favorites, starting with number 4, and I know this one may piss some people off, In Space. Now, I know what some people may be thinking, seeing In Space at number 4. I know what you guys are probably thinking. Malachi, what is In Space doing at number 4? It's the freaking best season of Power Rangers ever. Listen, I get it. In Space was a fantastic season all around, but I don't know, I think the ones above this one, there's just something about all three of them that appeals to me more than In Space, but I'm not gonna lie, In Space was a great season. Anyways, let's actually talk about why I thought it was so great. Now, one thing that the era that this season came from, again, I know I touched on the Zordon era before, this is actually the season that was in this era, but, yeah, one thing the previous seasons really didn't do all that well, except for kind of Zeo, but one thing that they really didn't do all that well was storytelling, and I mean real storytelling. I don't know, it's just, the franchise really didn't have really good kind of season-long storylines. However, In Space fits that. This show actually has not only a very entertaining story, but it has a lot of complexity to it. It's got a lot of really good twists and turns. There's a lot of really good stuff that happens in it, and there's a lot of really good events that happen throughout the show. Anyways, again, let's talk about the Ranger team itself. One of the best Ranger teams that we've ever had in a Power Ranger series, without a fucking doubt. Andros, Great Red Ranger, TJ, Great Blue Ranger, just about everyone, I think, received at least good enough development throughout the show. Like, no one really feels unfleshed out, or I don't even know if that's the best way of saying it, but everyone gets their time to shine in this series. There were a couple, I guess you'd say, kind of Ranger team-ups in a way. Well, not really Ranger team-ups. Well, mainly episodes where older Rangers come back, like episodes like Always a Chance and True Blue to the Rescue. I thought those were actually great episodes. I was kind of surprised by True Blue, but yeah, also, when it comes to the episodes, this season has some of the most consistently good episodes in the whole franchise, and yeah, there are a lot of really good episodes in this one. The first episode is great. I actually did kind of like the Ninja Turtle team up that they did. It wasn't fantastic, but I liked it. Again, the two ones that I mentioned before, the episode where the Sits Ranger that actually goes on a date with one of the main villains, I thought that was really entertaining. Yeah, oh yeah, also the Sits Ranger, I think his name is Zane. He's very funny and he's a very entertaining character. And yeah, again, on the villain side of things, we have a lot of really freaking good villains as well. Astronema might just be probably my favorite Ranger villain of the whole show, or of the whole franchise. I really love her, and I also like how they resolved the whole Andros and her thing at the end. I thought it was done really well. Dark Spectre is really fucking menacing, and he's also voiced by the same guy as Frank West for some reason. I don't know why I mentioned that, I just thought it was kind of funny, but Yeah, also, when it comes to the finale of In Space, probably, at least, if it's not the best episode of the franchise, it's at the very least top three. Like, I really fucking like Countdown to Destruction. It was the perfect way that they could have ended the show. This was actually meant to actually be the last. This was actually meant to be the last season of the franchise due to, well, low ratings, but In Space, thankfully, was good and also popular enough to the point to where we still have Power Rangers today, and I really gotta thank In Space for that. But again, I don't even think I could really give a good reason as to why this isn't higher. It's just, there was just, again, I think the other three seasons just had something in there that I liked more, but again, In Space, definitely one of the best seasons of Power Rangers. Definitely recommend this one. Like, even I would even recommend this to people who even aren't fans of Power Rangers. It's just a good show. Just a great season overall. I can say that about a lot of the shows here. But anyways, the segment's gone on a while. Let's move on to the top three. Number 3, RPM. AKA the last season of the Disney era, and I think this is also actually just supposed to be the last season of the show in general after a while, and yeah, if they were to end on this season, it would have been a huge bang. They would have went out with a big one. Yeah, RPM is by far one of the absolute best seasons of this show, without a doubt. But what made it so good? Well, firstly, there is one thing that I gotta appreciate about this season. Yeah, this season is pretty freaking dark thematically compared to a lot of the other Power Rangers seasons before this. Now, there were a couple seasons out there that were definitely a bit more dark, or darker than the usual season, but none of them were really like this. Like, this season literally focuses on the end of freaking humanity, and I think that's a pretty cool concept, and just, when it comes to the first episode, there were a lot of just really good stuff, really good shots in the technical area, and again, just, also when it comes to the first episode, it really sets up things well, both Road to Corinth and Fade to Black, but, yeah, when it comes to the Ranger team, yet again, by far one of my favorites of the whole, just all the freaking Ranger teams in the franchise. Great Red, Blue, Yellow Ranger, they're great. Dylan, the Black Ranger, very good. I mean, I know he may kind of come off as a bit of an edgy, emo, angsty teenage boy. Well, I don't know if he's even teenage in the show, but I know he has those vibes, but he's pretty solid. Ziggy, one of my favorite Green Rangers. I fucking love him. The villains are really cool. Vengeance is a great villain. The kind of machine, I think they're called the Tods, not the Machine Empire. Okay, now I'm getting the fucking enemies in this fucking season compared to the ones in Zero. Is confused with the ones in Zeo, but again, the villains are great. Well, I don't even think there is really a date. Oh, yeah, Dr. K, I think she's kind of the Ranger mentor. She's great, developed really well throughout the series. The extra Rangers, Gem and Gemma, I guess they're okay, but, yeah, again, the thing that I love about the season is not only does is the aesthetic cool, but, yeah, again, not only are the characters developed really well, but, again, I love the freaking story told in this show, and I think of all the Power Rangers seasons in the whole franchise, this is the one that I'd probably have to say is the most consistently good storytelling. Wise, like, it never really lets up. Like, it's really consistent when it comes to quality. The theme song, okay, gotta comment on this one. I'm probably one of, like, 3 people on the Places fucking Planet that actually kind of likes it. I mean, yeah, lyrically it fucking sucks. It's just Power Rangers, RPM, get in gear, we stand together, like, repeated for, like, a fucking minute, but instrumentally, it's one of the most memorable and one of the most badass things I've ever heard. But I will say the demo version, or the demos, at least the first 2, are better overall, and I think probably should have been used as a theme song, the actual one, but, yeah, love RPM overall. Number 2, Dino Thunder. Now, this is how you do a freaking Legacy season of Power Rangers. Yeah, Megaforce and Super Megaforce really didn't do the whole Legacy season thing very well. They really just felt like just shoveling a bunch of freaking fan service down your throat, and yeah, that's really doesn't make for a good season. Dino Thunder, though, again, this is how you freaking do it. Just Okay, I don't know how to necessarily quite put the whole legacy season thing into perspective, I just can say, but there was a lot of scenes that this season did very well. Let's talk about them. So, again, as usual, we'll start with the characters. By far one of my absolute favorite freaking Ranger teams. And the thing is, they don't. You wouldn't think they would really have very much good synergy together because it really kind of feels like they grab a very wide cast. Well, okay, the Ranger team isn't super huge, but they, at least at the start, they choose three very different types of people. I mean, you have Connor, who's more so kind of just like the jock. We have Ethan, who's very much a nerd, and Kira, who's kind of, I don't know how to quite describe her, kind of like a punk kind of. I don't know if that's the best way of putting it, but she's very into rod, I guess you'd say. But yeah, again, you wouldn't think they'd have a really good chemistry, but surprisingly they actually do. And once again, I think all three, I guess you'd say for the most part, they do have very good development. Mainly Connor, I guess you'd say, because he really does focus on less superficial stuff, I guess you'd say. Like, at the start of the series, he seems to think, like, just girls and soccer are all that matters, but as he goes on, he actually becomes a more well-developed leader and is actually, more competent, I guess you'd say. Ethan, I really like his freaking sarcasm, and pretty much everything Kira does is just fucking fantastic, but, yeah, although I think, again, expanding across the main three, we have Trent, who, again, is one of the best freaking Sith Rangers, definitely probably the best White Ranger we've had. Tommy, who's from the kind of earlier Zordon era, he comes back and it's probably one of my favorite versions of Tommy by far. He has really good character development. He works as a great Black Ranger, and I think Fighting Spirit really does kind of put, well, not really the nail in the coffin, but really kind of ties together his whole story, I guess you'd say. And yeah, again, really great episode, and just overall, as the episodes do go by, it again is just really freaking good. Day of the Dino, really good opening episode. Legacy of Power, great kind of 100 episodes or 200 episodes, I forget what it especially was, but yeah, great episode. Back in Black, great second part to that, and the one where Tommy officially dons the, I guess you could say, Ranger uniform. Again, that was great. White Thunder, that's the one where Trent really gets his own kind of arc, and that's great. And Grab, it doesn't even just stop there. It still continues, and I think his arc is really good. On the villain side of things, we have kind of Mesogog and kind of his dinosaur army, I guess you'd say. I really like Mesogog, really good villain. Even when it comes to the side characters, I try to have a Bulk Skull type thing going on with Cassidy Cornell and I guess the other partner. But again, just like Bulk Skull, Cassidy does develop through the show and ends up becoming, I guess you'd say, a better character. I guess you'd say, and yeah, Dan, to continue on the episode thing structure, I guess you'd say, or the episode kind of roundup, I guess you'd say, it might just have my favorite freaking Ranger team up in the whole franchise. Well, either that or second favorite, Thunderstorm. This is where the one where they team up with the Ninja Storm team. Yeah, I freaking love this special. The character is like the chemistry between the Dino Thunder team and the Ninja Storm team. They gel together very well. It puts a very good, I guess you'd say, it serves as a really good ending to the Ninja Storm side of things as well, and yeah, I just really liked the freaking special, and also just the season as a whole, one of the best seasons of Power Rangers without a doubt, and this could partially be because I have a lot of nostalgia tied to this one, but even outside of nostalgia, this is a great season of the show, and by far the best Legacy season by not even a mile, just like a fucking century. But yeah, before we get on to the number one spot and what my favorite season of the show is, let's touch on a few honorable mentions. Well, not going super in depth, but I'll give a brief summary as to why they're only honorable mentions. So the first honorable mention we have is Wild Force, which I thought this was a mostly pretty fun season. There was some stuff I liked. The Ranger team was pretty good. The villains were mostly entertaining, and both of the team-ups they had, both Reinforcements from the Future and Forever Red, were fucking fantastic. Great freaking team-up episodes, especially Forever Red. I really liked that one. And Reinforcements reinforcements of the future kind of serves as a great end into the Time Force side of things, but I don't know. I think when it comes to its storytelling, I don't think it's really as good as it could have been, and it hasn't really aged all that well. But Wild Force still has stuff that is enjoyable. Mystic Force, probably my second least favorite of the Disney era, but considering I'm putting it as an honorable mention, I think that goes to show you that it's really not even that bad. The Ranger team is great. Nick, not the best Red Ranger, but it was at least kind of interesting. Wish they could have didn't focus as much on him as they did, but yeah, the Ranger team was great, very energetic. Villain side of things was mostly cool. Our Torag was cool. Mystic Mother was great. The theme song is pretty bumping, and the story was mostly pretty interesting. I do like how they kind of incorporated more magic into it, but I don't know. There was something about this season that really didn't hit with me as much as the other Disney seasons did, and Mighty Morphin kind of gave this away at the start of the video, but I only really think season 1 is good. I think seasons 2 and 3 were kind of just very meh, didn't hold up all that well, but again, Mighty Morphin is a classic. I do like it, just not top 10 worthy. Anyways, now that we got the honorable mentions out of the way, now it is time for the number 1 season of Power Rangers, in obviously my opinion. Number 1. Time Force. Okay, this is kind of a number 1 spot that I kind of came to realization of kind of recently. Now, when I first watched Time Force, I thought, again, I definitely agreed with people that it was a great season, although, I don't know, something about it then wasn't really hitting for me as much as it does now, but my recent viewings of Time Force have really cemented how much I really liked the season of this show. And yeah, this season does just about nearly everything well, for the most part anyway. But yeah, let's talk about the season again. Storytelling wise, again, pretty peak Power Rangers. Like, this is top 3 in terms of its storytelling. This is kind of in a similar boat to RPM of being more dark than the usual season. Ranger team wise, it's mostly great. Wes, Jen, and Trip, I think, are all pretty great Rangers. I think Kevin, I think that's the guy's name, I think that's his name, the Blue Ranger, I think he really didn't have a point in being there, he was kind of just there. The Yellow Ranger could have been better, but again, for the most part, hold up 1 minute. Okay, let's try to continue, but when it comes to the villain side of things, I think I was just talking about great freaking villains on most sides of the field. Rancic, definitely, like, top 3 Ranger villains, and yeah, he's probably by far one of the most sympathetic villains. I mean, he has a reason for why he became how he is and who he is. And again, I think he is really sympathetic because, I mean, he didn't want to be viewed as a freaking monster by humanity. Again, Power Rangers universe, they're kind of fucking racist, but yeah, again, Rancic had a really good setup to him, and I really like the ending where the villain doesn't really end up getting defeated. He actually ends up changing, and that is reflected more in Reinforcements from the Future, the Wild Force episode. But yeah, Rancid, great villain. I kind of forget the names of the rest of them, but the kind of support villains are pretty solid. And Eric, the Quantum Ranger, he's not as much of a team player as some other Sith Rangers, but I thought he was really interesting, developed pretty well, and Wes's dad, I think, also has great development He definitely kind of snaps out of how he used to be, and episode-wise, again, great freaking episodes, great finale, great opening episode, just, again, Time Force is just a really fucking good season, and again, just one of overall the best seasons of the show. Now, I don't know or if I would really say it is the best, but it is definitely my favorite season. And again, this was really one that really hit harder as I watched it recently. But yeah, Time Force, great season. Actually, pretty much every season on this list is great, and I would recommend these to anyone. Like, if you haven't seen Power Rangers and you want some good seasons to start out with, watch the ones that are on this list. Like, these seasons, I think, I don't know if I can't guarantee that you'll get into it as much as I do, but yeah, this Power Rangers overall is just a great franchise, and even though we've had a couple hiccups here and there throughout the whole history of the show, the franchise is still one of my favorite franchises of all time, and I really love watching Power Rangers. I liked it when I was a younger kid. I still like it to this day. It holds up very well, at least the seasons past the kind of Zordon era, but yeah, I really like Power Rangers, and it's a great franchise. Anyways, I am Malachi Branch Productions, and see you guys in the next video.